Now, I'm Jeff Sweat's wife, Sunny Cannon. I'm especially proud of his accomplishments with this book. The first book, Mayfly, was spectacular. This one, if you can believe it, is even better. It was definitely a labor of love, and when you read it, you'll know why. What's not great about this situation is the book came out right during the middle of this pandemic, and we are not able to celebrate him properly. So I'm so glad you guys are able to join us tonight and hear some snippets from scenes of the book. The reading is going to go a little bit differently. Instead of straight up reading, our daughter Charlotte and some of her friends from her theater group, the Silver Lake Children's Theater Group, will be doing a dramatic reading with Jeff. So thank you for spending your Friday night with us, and a deep thank you to everyone who's helped pull this off. And now it's time for me to hand you over to Max Young of Roman's Bookstore in Pasadena. Go ahead, Max.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sunny. And hi, everyone. Like she said, my name is Max Young, and I'd like to thank you all on behalf of Roman's Bookstore for joining our virtual event. Tonight, we're lucky to have with us Jeff Sweat, who's going to be giving us a presentation of his book, Scorpion. Again, we're so grateful that you can make it tonight and that you continue to support our independent bookstore during this tough time. Like Sunny was saying, there is a Q&A tonight. So you can go ahead and click the Q&A button down at the bottom. You can go ahead and ask Jeff questions, and he'll go ahead and get to those. And if you're interested in supporting our bookstore, you can go ahead and purchase a copy of his book from our website. I'll go ahead and place the link to his book in the chat throughout, so you can go ahead and buy it whenever you'd like. But with that all out of the way, let me go ahead and introduce Jeff. Jeff Sweat has made a living from his words his entire career, starting out as an award-winning tech journalist for Information Week magazine and moving into marketing. He led the content marketing team for Yahoo and pioneered its use of social media. He directed PR for two of the top advertising agencies in the country, Dutch LA and 72 and Sunny. He now runs his own Los Angeles-based PR and marketing agency. And tonight he's here to present his book, Scorpion. So without further ado, please welcome Jeff Sweat.
Hey, everybody. It is so odd not to be able to see your faces, but I would love, as we're going, if you wouldn't mind just dropping little notes in throughout. Oh, apparently you can't hear me. I'm not really sure what's going on. Can you guys still not hear me? Oh, we can hear you. Awesome. All right. That was a little moment of panic. By the way, I'm used to interviewing people all the time, so it's kind of odd to be doing my own little thing. But what I do, like I said, I'm really glad that we're able to reach a lot of people with this. I think one of the issues with the way we normally do readings is that we can't all get to I can't get to all parts of the country, and typically we do a couple of readings and that's it. So I love that we can do this kind of all at once, and that this is not something we have to do over and over again. So glad you're here. Like I said, keep on dropping in little notes. That way we can kind of not feel like we're talking into the void. I'm going to actually do like a few kind of little polls kind of throughout, just because it makes it kind of feels a little more interactive. So my very first thing, and this is assuming that you guys have been reading already, is who's your favorite character in Mayfly or Scorpion? So is it Gemma? Is it Lady? Is it Apple? Is it Pico? Is it Grease? Is it Little Man? Tasha? And of course, there are others that I could have put in here, but I got to stop at like 7 or 8. So I'm going to let you guys kind of do that for a second. And we'll announce the polling. Keep coming, because I want to talk about that for just 1 second. So this has been a long time in the works. I actually started writing Scorpion before I even sold Mayfly, and so this has been kind of on my mind for a long time. I knew roughly where I was going, but didn't know quite what I was going to do with it. So it's amazing for it to see the light of day. I'm going to show you the polls really quickly here. So this is one I can clearly tell that people have been reading this book. So 29% say Gemma is their favorite character. 29% say Apple. So it's been kind of like a fan favorite, I think. And then 14 say Greece and Pico. Only 7% say laity. That kind of makes me a little sad. But we'll keep, we'll see how you guys feel about this at the end of this series. I wanted to make a few acknowledgments because I think, as I may have told you some of this last time, when Mayfly launched, my publisher accidentally left out my acknowledgments. And so I wasn't able to talk about some of the amazing people who touched this along the way. And when Scorpion came out, I finally got a chance to use those acknowledgments, and I dropped them in to the book, kind of more or less unchanged. And in so doing, I realized that I left out a bunch of people who were instrumental in bringing both Mayfly and Scorpion to life. And so I wanted to just kind of call those folks out for a second, and hopefully some of them are listening. So one thing that has been really important to me is making sure that everything in Mayfly is scientifically plausible, if not actually possible. And so I asked for a lot of people for help. One of those folks is Amy Meyer, who's a friend of mine who I talked about Mayfly with when it was just an idea, and she helped me figure out a way to explain how the end could kill people over the age of 17, but not kids. And I think it's one of those things that's kind of true about sci-fi and related things, is that sometimes we have an idea that doesn't necessarily make sense. So we have to kind of reverse engineer it to fit in with society. I'm also fortunate to be related by marriage to Lincoln Cannon, who's Sunny's cousin. And it turns out he's an expert on things like transhumanism and artificial intelligence. And he graciously spent many hours on the phone with me to understand how the nanotech would work and the artificial intelligence, and how a real life long life project would work. And so, you know, everything that we talk about in Scorpion are things that are actually happening now. And, you know, my feeling is like sort of by the time the period when the end happened and the long life project happened was about 2026. Some of those things really could be going on. So, you know, if they happen, then I guess I warned you. So, you know, make sure you're in a safe location when all this stuff starts to go down. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. By the way, I'm broadcasting this on Facebook. Like, so if you guys want to, you know, say hi over there, you feel free to as well. So Lincoln Cannon is really important. I think the one thing I really wanted to talk about is that Scorpion was a lot harder to write than Mayfly. And it's partly because a second book is always hard. I feel like you should just never write a second book in life, like skip from first to third and kind of go from there. But it was really hard, partly from a plot point of view, but partly because, and I think some of you know this, I was really sick during that time. Sunny and our family and I were exposed to black mold in our house, and didn't realize the effects that would have on not just our physical health, but mental health. And so we were exhausted all the time, which is, you know, kind of, which is important to know, but also, like, I literally couldn't think sometimes. Some days there were just days that I just felt foggy. And so it was very difficult to come up with compelling ideas, especially as we were trying to launch this. And so a few friends really helped me get through that. One is Cheryl, my agent, Pienka. She talked me off the ledge multiple times when I was sort of dealing with all of these issues. She also, in a very practical way, brought in a couple of editorial assistants, Samantha Campbell and Hillary Brown, who are invaluable in setting the story straight. My two best friends, Matt Rodriguez and Vanessa McGrady, both helped me. And Matt stepped in and helped me project manage key parts of my website and my marketing campaigns. And Vanessa introduced me to my agent in the first place, and also did things like helping me crash her cabin when it was time to really buckle down and get Scorpion out. And kind of by my count, more than 20 people helped market Mayfly through Mayfly Quest, through our partnership with Giphy, all these kinds of things. And I'm so grateful to them, including my team at Sweat & Co., who I'm incredibly lucky to have as an author, to have that resource. One of the persons that I'm most indebted to, but I don't think I've kind of publicly thanked, is Joy Allen, who I hope is on here. She acted as my editorial assistant in some really key parts and helped me figure out some plot points of Scorpion. she also created a good portion of the Mayfly Quest activation we did. And really importantly, she came up with the title Scorpion. So kudos to you, Joy, if you're out there. And if, you know, if she's not here, if anyone wants to pass that along, I would really appreciate that. Finally, I want to thank my family. So my kids have been an ongoing source of inspiration to me. And we'll talk a little bit later about which of them are actually characters in this or not. Charlotte not only helped me agreed to have her name attached to a homicidal AI, but she also came up with some really cool ideas, including the Archimedes ray scene. I won't give anything more away in case you haven't gotten there yet. And Sunny, of course, was my rock throughout all of this. We kind of have a rule that only one of us are allowed to be crazy at a time. And when you're on deadline for a book, you're automatically the crazy one. And so she was the one who helped me get through all of this. And she, as I said, it's my first and my best reader. So thank you so much, everyone. And I want to thank all of you. All of you played a really important role. Most of you I can tell in here are my friends, and I'm so happy that you were here through all of this. So I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to do one more poll because I think this is fun. Again, this assumes some sort of knowledge of the book, but I think you'll do it. I want to ask which group of people you most identify with in the book. And so people of LA, let me launch that. Tell me if you would be an Angelino or a Last Lifer, or the Kingdom, the Ice Cream Men, the Biters, the Weavers, or the Old Guys. Well, this is fun to watch. It's cool to see this. I feel like at some point we should do this as like our sort of BuzzFeed quiz. You know, which Hogwarts house are you? So I'm getting some results coming in. While those are coming up, I would like to invite our next group of people sorry, there's one other thing I'm going to do. So I'm going to pull up this poll really quickly. Oh, Ravensclaw. Thanks, Rachel. Let's see. So let me, I'm going to end the polling and pull this up because this is fun. 33% of you would be Angelinos. I guess that makes a certain amount of sense. 20% said to be part of the Kingdom. Excellent choice. They're tough. And there's some brainiacs in the group. You would be part of the Old Guys. And I actually don't know if you're saying this because you actually feel like you're old or not, but I think this is pretty cool. So I'm going to do something that I sometimes do just to kind of get going on the reading front, which is I'm going to have people in the audience message to everybody a page number and a paragraph number. So just two numbers. And I can tell you there are less than 400 pages. So kind of keep it there. I will read, yeah, no biters. That is disappointing. Yeah, you're right, Teo. There should be more cannibals in this group, but the Last Lifers, I feel like got some representation. All right, so if you guys can drop in the screen, give me a page number and a paragraph number. I will read kind of on demand sections from that. So I'm watching the Q&A. I don't see anything yet. Okay, 67, paragraph 3. Thanks, Rachel. And by the way, I've had like two line paragraphs before, which is pretty, or 2-word paragraphs, I should say. All right, so, all right, so 67.3. Oh, this is a good one. Things fall apart, Pico. They always will. Cells decay. The universe expands and everything falls away from everything else. We made a mistake when we decided to hold it together. All right, I'm going to read Carl's 110.5. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Yes, because they only oppose you, Tasha says. All right, see, there you go. That's a short one. All right, 224.4. Oh, let me get that one. Awesome. All right. Check it out, she says to the girl next to her. Athena, maybe? I look like a boy. All right, Jenna, I'm going to read yours, and then I'm going to jump into start inviting the kids to come in and read. All right, 316, paragraph 6. Let's see if there is a paragraph 6. Yep, Alfie says. 4 of us are old enough to fight. 3 girls and me. Actually, I'm going to read one more because there was a whole bunch. Cheryl, did I read yours? Let me do that one really quickly. Cheryl Bianca, ladies and gentlemen, my awesome agent who you should all be so lucky to work with. So let me do that one. Okay, 132, paragraph 2. What? Untie the damn rope, little man says. All right, well, on that note, we're gonna introduce some of the kids from, kids is probably not the right term because they're all now going into high school and stuff, but the Silver Lake Children's Theater Group. If you guys wouldn't mind turning on your cameras and unmuting, you can join it, let everybody see your awesome faces. So I'm gonna ask actually a real quick question for everybody. So we have Teo Langer. Teo, what grade are you going into?
I'm going into sophomore year.
Okay. Paloma Pasco, what year are you going into?
I'm going into 9th grade.
Okay. Rise Lippitt, what grade are you going into?
I'm going into 10th grade.
Cool. Sienna Viviana, what grade are you going into?
I'm going into 12th grade.
Awesome. Charlotte Sweat, what grade are you going into? This is
going
good.
into-
I actually need to know this.
Yeah, I'm going into 8th grade.
Awesome. So guys, the Silver Lake Children's Theater Group, if you don't live in town or if you do, is an awesome theater group. They typically write their own plays every year, which is really cool. And in fact, Sienna was on deck to write a pretty amazing sounding musical, loosely based on the story of Ferris Bueller, but with a female protagonist. And that didn't happen this year because of COVID. So we were all super bummed. I think everybody was bummed, but I'm sure Sienna most of all. And so what I thought would be fun is to do a reading with this group of people because, you know, I get kind of tired of reading my own stuff all the time. And I kind of always wanted to see what this looks like as a movie. And also I thought it'd be fun to have a project for the theater group since they weren't able to do it. So they're not going to be able to hear your applause when we do it, but if you guys wouldn't mind dropping notes into the chat as we do it to, you know, kind of give your reactions, that'd be amazing. We're going to read 3 scenes, and I'm going to kind of set them up and kind of tell you who's playing each character. These scenes are actually, a lot of them are set kind of, some of them deeper into the book than I would do, but I'm kind of trusting everybody that you'll go ahead and read it anyway and not worry too much about spoilers. So, but they're really fun ones, and I wanted to put stuff in that had a fair amount of dialogue. So the first scene is called The Telling. The Telling is set on Catalina Island, which, if those of you don't live in California, is just 15 miles away from the coast of California. In this book, it's called Catalina's Grave because no one returns from there. So Tommy, also known as Little Man, is the leader of the Biters, or the Chosen, as they call themselves. They are cannibals. They're not nice people. And Tommy has gone to Catalina's grave looking for answers about the haze. But he is thrown overboard in a mutiny. He's not a super popular guy. He almost drowns. And when he wakes up, he finds he's tied to a post flat on his back in a tidal marsh. And the tide is coming in. So Tommy has 2 other personalities which sort of come up here. Little Man is the confident dictator that everybody is scared of. And Pissant is the scared little orphan that Tommy used to be. So he's got some kind of personality issues. Charlotte Sweat is going to be playing all of them. And the other character in the scene, Scott, is going to be played by Teo Langer. And I am going to read the narration. So let's give this a shot. This is Lit Theater 101. All right. Is it wetter than it was a moment ago? Out of the corner of his eye, he imagines more glinting silver between the reeds. The water is rising. It must be. The rope stops halfway with thumb. He compresses his hand, but the rope doesn't move. The right wrist is too tight, so he tries something else. If he can slide his body down and lift his hands above his head, pointing like a diver, He may be able to get the knots close enough to each other that he can untie himself. If he dislocates a shoulder, just one of them, he needs to relax his body to dislocate it, but he can't. He feels himself sweating, even in the cool green whispering sea.
Jeez, dude, don't hurt yourself.
The face pushes out of the reeds. The hair must have been brown, but is streaked blonde from the sun. A boy, 16, close to ending, strong and scarred, a warrior.
If you want out, just ask.
Why would you let me go?
Better question is, why would we tie you up?
Then why am I tied up?
Cause, man, we never saw someone thrash so much. What are you afraid of?
Tommy sees the vengeance coming toward him, the sea, the giants, the haze, the chosen, the pink arms. The answer is everything, but he doesn't answer the question aloud.
Well, we tied you up because you were hurting yourself. You ever cut those nails?
No, little man doesn't. The rulers of the chosen don't cut their nails to show they don't have to work. His are long, jagged, curling. There are brownish stains under some of them that don't look like dirt, and now he sees the lines on his arms differently. This boy's nails, though, are worn down to the beds. One of them has a blood blister under it, probably from a hammer. He's a worker, but he doesn't carry himself like a lower. The boy squats next to Tommy as if to untie him, but Tommy notices he doesn't move any closer to the ropes. Perhaps he's not as trusting as he appears.
So, little dude, how did you end up in the middle of the ocean?
Is that where you found me?
You were caught in one of our nets that stretch off from the point. The current pushes fish through it. We weren't expecting you there.
Was I there long?
Tommy has a time to think of a cover story, so he keeps asking questions.
Well, long enough for you to pass out, I'd guess. Not long enough to drown, but how'd you float into it?
What's your name?
Scott, how'd you get here?
The boy's smile is real, but his focus on Tommy is wary. Tommy isn't getting out of the ropes until he answers. Keep it simple, Tommy thinks. Keep it close to the truth so you can't slip.
I escaped from my people. I was forced to join the crew on one of their raiding trips. Cooking, toilets, that kind of thing. And they beat me if they thought I did anything wrong. When the storm came, I took my chance and swam overboard.
It's the same story told to the Angelinas in the kingdom, and they believed him even though they didn't trust him. Scott nods, seeming to take the story at face value. He moves toward the knots, just like at the kingdom where little man was able to manipulate Gemma and orchestrate an attack from the inside, because no one believed such a little kid could matter. The big taken in by the small again. The boy reaches toward the knots, then stops, fingers hovering just above the rope.
Only...
Tommy finds himself holding his breath, waiting for him to close the gap.
What?
Untie the damn rope, little man says.
It's just that if I had to guess, maybe 1 in 3 of the things you told me are true. Maybe 1 in 4. You want to try that again?
I'm just a little kid. You don't know what I had to go through.
Tommy feels himself shrinking, becoming the kid he's supposed to be. Not little man. Pissant.
I don't doubt it.
I'm telling you, it's true. They hurt me.
You know we live 15 miles across the ocean from the biters, right? We know they don't sail here because Catalina's grave, but our people come from land. All the way over here, we hear stories of blue eyes and white sails, of people who eat people and tattoo their kills on their wrists.
And Scott looks down at Tommy's right wrist. 3 black marks slash their way across his veins.
I was forced to.
You're too small to fight, and we know you ain't cleaning any toilets.
The fingernails again. They're too long.
So somehow you're a leader.
Before Tommy can react, Scott leans over, unties the rope from the pole, and ties it again, even tighter. Now Tommy can't pull his arms together.
For such a little dude to be leader of the scariest people around, you'd have to be some seriously scary son of a bitch.
Tommy should be angry, scared, but no one ever takes him seriously, even after all he's done for the Chosen. His greatest weapon was that no one ever believed he could do what he did, and Scott has taken that away. But Scott also takes him seriously, and somehow that feels right.
I would clap, but...
He shrugs at the ropes.
A lot of stories blow our way.
So now you kill me.
Tommy would kill a threat like himself without a question.
Oh, that'd be a waste. Know how hard we worked to save you? Even then we could tell you were one of the people leaders, but we saved you anyways.
Why?
Well, like I said, a lot of stories blow our way. We untie them and let them stay, but only if they're honest about who they were. We call it the telling.
Tommy lies in the grass, looking past the reeds to the sky. It's blue now, no storm. He wasn't wrong before, the water is rising. He feels it tickle in his ears, but still he doesn't move. The boy stands up.
People change when they're here. They gotta change. Leave it all in the net, dude.
And he walks away through the reeds. Tommy will die here. He knows it. As peaceful as these people seem, they will let him die if he lies. He would almost tell the truth for that alone, but not quite. The water pushes past his ears, under his chin. He has 20 minutes left. Tell him, Pistan says. Shut up, asshole, little man says. That's going to get us hurt. Tommy doesn't know which to believe. He has never told the truth. Truth always meant pain. It meant loss. It meant showing himself as he was. Tommy holds still for long minutes and the water creeps up his sides. It feels good. Wouldn't it be a relief to drown when it comes? He has never told the truth to himself. When he finally speaks, Tommy's not sure if anyone is listening. He just hears rustling in the reeds. But it almost doesn't matter if they listen. He speaks just to feel the sounds floating in the air, each word another stone off his chest.
My name is Tommy. My real name is Little Man. Before that, I was Pissant. I didn't get a name. I never knew a soul who loved me. I never had someone who had my back. I'm the youngest Lord of the Chosen. People call us the Biters, and they're right. I've eaten my enemies. I slaughtered our allies. I created giants who've defeated death. We sailed here to find a rival and force him to tell me what he knows. I'm terrified of the end, even though I've inflicted on others. I told myself I was the greatest leader since the end. My own people tried to kill me in Catalina's grave.
Nothing changes for a while, for a long while. The water moves to the corner of his eyes. He can keep his nose and mouth out, but just.
I've been weak my whole life. I only ever had one friend, and he's just a servant.
The reeds whisper louder. It's either the wind or Scott returning after listening. No, he can see when the reeds part and faces of every color push through. It was dozens of kids listening. And in the middle of all those faces, Scott's is touched with pity.
That's a lot to leave in the net. You up for it?
Yeah, I think so.
Just one thing, dude.
He fixes him with a glance that knows everything about Tommy.
You forgot to tell us about the haze.
And scene. Thank you, guys. By the way, there's a little like applause thing. Actually, I don't know, you can never mind. You can't see it, but just, put some stuff in. That's pretty cool. Like I said, we're still a couple years away from a movie, so this is going to have to do for the time being. I'm going to set up the next scene and the next group of people. As some of you remember from Mayfly, Gemma can see the future and learn things from a power called the haze in Scorpion. And by the way, guys, check out your fan comments while I'm reading this because it's pretty awesome. So in Scorpion, she has lost that power and she's desperate to get it back, partly so she can stop the end and partly because she misses it. So they have found out that the haze is nanotech controlled by an AI named Charlie, nanotech that caused the end. And even though she can't feel the haze anymore, she can still speak to Charlie through an ancient Game Boy that uses the pixelated face of Apple, who was the boy she loved who died in the first book. So I feel like I'm kind of giving a little bit away there, but that's okay. This is Gemma's chance to convince Charlie to stop the end. So in this scene, Gemma is going to be played by Sienna. Charlie will be played by Rizo Lippett. Charlie, by the way, is not my daughter in this thing, just so we're clear. This is the AI. James will be played by Teo, and Isaac will be played by Charlotte. So we're going to jump into this. By the way, the setting for this is they are on kind of an old aircraft carrier called the Ark. This is where the old guys have been trying to restart the Long Life Project and hopefully to stop the end and save kids. So they're in an old computer room. So and the kids call them pewters because this is not a word that has stuck around. There's not a lot of computer usage in 100 years from now. So anyway, so I'll jump in. Charlie's face flickers on the tiny green screen, in and out, in and out, in and out like a heartbeat. No, that's not quite the rhythm. More like someone tapping its fingers, just waiting for her to walk into the room as if she's the one who hasn't been talking. The moment Gemma touches the Game Boy, the screen flashes bright, clearer than ever before. The Game Boy has been plugged into the wall of the old pewter room, surrounded by broken machines. Every day Gemma has come to tap it, but Charlie hadn't come back until now.
Charlie.
And then every TV and pewter screen in the room lights up, even the broken ones. Every square is a part of Charlie's face. Gemma blinks in the glare.
Show off.
Tell me about the end.
Should I? Or is this a trick?
You might not understand the concept of death. Maybe if you can show it, we can come to some kind of understanding.
Gemma finds herself tripping over words to explain to Charlie how much of an end the end really is. Charlie seems to think that people just blink off without being missed, the way it loses bots all the time only to gain new ones. How do you explain death to something that seems unable to die?
Tell them it's like being shut down.
She does, and Charlie blinks.
Then you can just turn on again.
No, Charlie. Forever.
That's meaningless. Forever is a second or a century.
It's too alien to understand these concepts.
Pico's serious face lights up the flashing apples around the room.
Could all this happen because of a misunderstanding? We're really supposed to think Charlie just hasn't figured out what it's doing to us.
Well, stranger things have happened. World War I was caused by a bunch of people who couldn't admit they were wrong.
Charlie may be able to hear your words, but it's not human. We can't make it understand emotions. At least, I never could.
It will.
Gemma stops trying to explain the condition of death and describes the feeling of the end. How she and Apple were joined, how when they were together, they felt more than doubled, the way they could reach out into the universe while life rained down upon their skin. How, when Apple died, her chest ached for days, how her senses shut down, how half the stars winked out.
It's like we felt when they tried to shut us off. We were too frightened. We were so alone with ourselves.
Children feel alone all the time until we find each other.
Can't feel what you say, but we want to.
She looks at its eyes like apples and realizes how to make it feel. Gemma picks up the Game Boy in her hands and stares at it, as if she could bore her way inside with her eyes. She breathes deep and slow, exhales to push the thoughts from her head, and reaches. She pictures the blue visions she received in the bowl and tries to call them back, but her eyes remain free of haze. She squeezes the box until she thinks the plastic might break, and then she stops with a sob, as if her lungs have collapsed. The frustration and pain rush in. Apple is lost, Lady is lost, the haze is lost, and soon they will all be lost. The old guys have failed her, the end is coming, and she is all alone. We're all alone until we find each other. The love for Apple and Lady and the world that's ending swirls through their heart. In that love, she finds the haze. She feels that old hum in her ears that said the haze was there. Her vision explodes in blue dust. When the door to the haze cracks open, she rushes through it and fills Charlie with images of the people she loves, the life she lives, the ache she feels at their loss like a missing limb. She had it all wrong this whole time. The secret to telling Charlie about the end isn't the thoughts of death. It's the thoughts of life. Living wasn't something owned only by the parents. Living means love. She's lucky enough to love. The end will hurt that more because of it, but the living is better.
Make it stop, Charlie. Turn off the end.
This time she hears Charlie's voice inside her head.
Do you see it? We feel.
Gemma tries to hold the haze, but it fades away like mist. Apple's face is still in the Game Boy, though.
We want to help you.
Okay.
Relief breaks over Gemma, bathing her in warmth. And James and Isaac hug. How must it feel for them to see the end of the end James started?
We want to help you, but we can't.
The relief ends.
Why?
There was a mistake in our programming. That's what led to the haze to kill at first. It's hardwired. Can't change it.
Bullshit.
Every blinking eye in the room swivels toward him, toward this little boy with the deadly intent in his eyes.
It hurt you.
Yep. And I hope it hears me when I tell it that I can see the lie all over its stupid robot face.
Gemma still holds the plastic Game Boy case in her hand. Charlie's face is looking from side to side on the screen, but now it's not saying anything. Its movements echo throughout the room on every screen. She looks at the Game Boy screen and locks eye with the boy she loves and hates Charlie for using that face against her. She hurls the Game Boy against the wall, the cord sailing after it. It shatters in a shower of beige and green.
You crazy, Gemma? We need that to talk.
I just need a screen, any screen.
And she rips another TV from the bench and throws it on the ground. The screen cracks and the face flickers out.
Come on, Charlie, you want to talk to me so bad? Talk to me. Tell me how to fix this.
Can't fix ourselves. It's hardwired into our directive. You need to come help us.
Gemma shoves over another TV.
Bullshit! You can't figure out how to flip a switch?
Charlie doesn't answer and Gemma knocks another screen down.
Stop lying to me, or you're gonna run out of screens real soon and you're gonna be real damn lonely.
Don't you need this? What you gonna do without the haze?
The haze is just a bunch of electric bugs.
Pico nods and picks up a hammer from the workbench.
This should do the trick.
Gemma smashes 3 more screens in a row.
Stop the end, Charlie, or I will come to wherever you are hiding in the desert and shut you down myself.
She smashes the last of the machines until Charlie is gone. Oh, shit. Sorry. Nope. I jumped ahead. Don't do that. Charlie, go for it.
You won't stop the end. You don't want to.
I'll see you soon, Uto.
She smashes the last of the machines until Charlie is gone.
Well, so much for the screens.
Gemma doesn't answer. She looks at her fingertips and sees the haze dancing among them. She doesn't imagine it. She doesn't see visions of it like the ones that Charlie had prepared for her. She sees it with her actual eyes, even though no one else seems to. However the haze has come back, it's different, stronger, fitted to her like it shared a womb.
Don't think I'm gonna need the screens.
And scene. Nice work, guys. That was fun. Rizo, by the way, is pretty good at the AI thing. He just had that right off the ground. And you guys all sounded amazing. It's fun to see everybody kind of come to life. So last scene. This is kind of a standalone scene, but I think it's beautiful. And guys, again, check out your reviews. The reviews are in. It looks like we're going to be around for another night at least. So this last scene is set on the way to confront Charlie in Vegas, and Gemma and Isaac, who are traveling together in one of the last surviving cars. And along the way, they encounter a group of kids unlike any they've ever met. And these people are from the middle of the country and kind of the Rocky Mountains, places where survival has been a lot harder and the children are nearly wiped out. And these are the last of them. So in this one, Gemma is once again played by Sienna. Isaac and Tallboy, actually, you know what? I realized this is where we messed up before. I'm gonna say Isaac is played by Rizo. Basket Girl is played by Paloma. Onion Boy and Tallboy are played by Teo. And Rope Girl is played by Charlotte Sweat. So, all right, so let's dive into this one. The debris moves, sticks fall down, tires roll away. Gemma is so puzzled from the shapes emerging from them that she doesn't think to run. If the debris looks like a junkyard, then the shapes look like walking piles of junk. They clank toward her, slow enough and small enough that she's more fascinated than alarmed. The shapes seem like children, but children born down with boxes and boards and pots and bows. The awkward shapes remind Gemma of little crabs she found on the beach of the camp, scurrying around in other animals' shells. Sometimes she would watch one drop one shell, only to find a bigger shell and climb into it, soft-bodied and naked. The spirals were top-heavy and wobbly. The crabs looked drunk when they walked. Then faces of the children emerged from the bundles, and Gemma wonders if, like the crabs, this is their protection from the world. They are pink mostly, but not like the biters, who are all blonde and blue-eyed. 10 of the kids have red hair and freckles. Even in the dark, their hair is brighter than Isaac's. They shuffle into a rough half circle around her. Alarm finally flashes at their hungry looks. Gemma knows a lot of cannibals already. Why couldn't these be more of them? She lifts the gun to her shoulder and they stop. She isn't sure if it's for the gun or for the motion itself.
You know what this thing is?
It's a stick.
It's a stick.
The strangled twangs are so different from the accents of LA that Gemma has to replay the words in her head to understand their meaning.
It'll hurt you if you get closer.
One girl carries a basket on her head.
It's a shooter. I seen it.
The accent starts to sound more familiar. The only time she's heard it is in movies the old guys called Westerns.
I just want to be on my way.
We ain't gonna hurt you. We just wanted to see what you was. We saw that thing that you were in from a long ways away, and we wanted to take a look.
It's a car. Sort of.
Car.
Sort of.
Gemma scans the crowd for weapons. There are some, bows and machetes and sharpened sticks, but no one makes an effort to reach for them. More than that, no one makes an effort at all. She sees a wariness in their face, the shadow of the last lifers. There's something else that's wrong now that she thinks of it. There's no haze following them. That's why she couldn't see them.
Who are you?
We're what's left. We're the only ones still living.
In your home?
In the world.
It's a boy with a box of onions. The rest speak in fragments, and Gemma stitches the story together from pieces. Most of them come from far inland, scattered in and near the band of mountains that Gemma has seen running up the center of old America. Maybe somewhere descended from the people who took in Isaac. They didn't live together there. Most of them just woke up one morning and realized they were the only ones left. The last three in a sprawling city, the only voice in a long-gone hotel, the last to harvest crops in a mountain valley growing cold. A tall boy steps forward. He works his jaw several times as if practicing for speech.
Yeah, I lived in a canyon, just me and a goat and 40 steps to the spring. And I got taller. Then that was 5 less steps to know.
Some of them went years without speaking to another soul. Most don't have names. They must have heard something, like a distant memory, about the ocean and the place next to it, where the winter never comes and they could end in comfort, because they flowed separately down the hills and valleys toward the sea, smaller creeks joining smaller creeks until they formed a little river staring at Gemma and Isaac. They carried their only belongings on their back, as if, should they lose them, they'd lose whatever it was they used to be.
Who were you?
We don't know.
Before the end came, I mean.
We don't know.
Wait, you never got told about the end? Not even in stories?
Never had no stories. Never had no one to tell us no stories.
That wasn't true among the Angelinos or the Biters of the kingdom. They were people of the story. The story gives life meaning. The story tells who you are.
What happened? What's the end?
So Gemma tells them the story. At first, she starts to tell them the story of the Holywood, the one that gets told every night about the first mamas. Then she thinks, this ain't their story. More than that, that story is about to run out. The emptiness in the children's eyes has been bothering her until she realizes where she's seen it. It's the look of almost every old guy except James and Alice. Resignation, despair, the sense that the world has no room for them because they have lived beyond all their stories. So she tells a new story about the wind plague. It doesn't last long. Everything she tries to explain are things most children don't have the words for anymore. And she has to repeat herself every few words. How long has it been since I've had to talk with normal kids, she wonders. The Gemma who could do that lived in another time. So Gemma starts again.
Once there was a demon who was jealous of the people below. It wanted to love how they loved, breathe how they breathed. It couldn't do that, so it cursed them, sent them into a powerful haze, and froze and the world for 100 years. It ended people when they came old enough, strong enough, brave enough to fight it.
As she says it, she realizes that she's right, that this is Charlie's story. Charlie believes it can't live if humans do.
The children were crushed into nothing. They were hanging on to life. But what the demon didn't understand was the deepness of their hearts. The children sent 2 warriors to hunt the demon. They were frightened of the demon, but they knew their magic was stronger than its haze. They tracked the demon to its cave and challenged it to fight.
How does it end?
How do you want it to end?
Because Gemma doesn't know the end yet.
The warriors captured the demon.
They eat it.
The warriors get eaten.
Everyone shakes their head at that. Gemma notices something and the kids get more animated. Little sparks of the haze floating around them. The haze had not recognized them as human enough to swarm, but now it comes. A tiny girl with a belt of coiled rope covering her entire belly speaks up.
We help the warrior.
The other children nod.
We tame the magic. We make it work for us.
Gemma nods slowly, considering the kids.
Can you fight?
Rope girl pulls a bow off her back and aims an arrow at the tip of a flagpole half lit by the fire. It strikes it dead in the center and clings to the deck.
We can hunt.
There's not just an ocean at the end of this road. The Angelinos will give you a home.
Gemma tells them how to find the towers of downtown. The Angelinos will know what to do with a couple dozen hunters in the coming war. The sparks of haze grow thicker around them. The cries get more excited. The leftover children are now making themselves part of the story. And Gemma is starting to understand the story she still needs to tell. And scene. Good job, guys. I'm gonna clap for everyone else because I know they are out there. We should do an audiobook of Scorpion and Mayfly. That's a great idea. We'll get on that. Clap, clap, clap. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for joining me. We are seriously thinking about doing this as a potential series where we just bring in other authors and have them narrate it like this. So if you guys are interested, that may be on the docket sometime this summer. So guys, thank you so much. I'm gonna let our audience, our readers go away. If you guys want, you can still watch, but we'll let you turn off your cameras and get a drink of water and all that kind of stuff. Thank you so much. This has been such an amazing experience working with you. Awesome. And I am going to introduce a friend of mine who's going to be interviewing me for the rest of this. This is Vanessa McGrady, who I mentioned is one of my very close friends. And I have been fortunate enough to have some amazing siblings and amazing family. And Vanessa is one of the sibling I got to pick, I guess, although I would say I would pick my other siblings as well. And she, along with my brother Matt and my other brother Matt Rodriguez, are kind of the few people that are inside of our quarantine bubbles. So I have the honor of actually having her personally here. And Vanessa, come on over.
Hi. Hi. That is the sweetest thing. Well, how amazing were those kids? If this was a real arena, we would have
give
another round of applause for
Definitely
those amazing
let them
children.
know how much you love that. That was so awesome.
Beautiful, beautiful. I have a feeling that you are not done with these characters. I know
not.
that this is, and this might be a question for Cheryl, but I know that this is the second and final book in the series. But I kind of have a feeling that you just love too hard and too long, and I don't think this is going to be the end.
It won't be the end. We've been talking about, so I am actually working on a prequel to this, and I was kind of underway, and then all of the pandemic happened, and it started to feel honestly a little too close to home. So I decided I needed to do something a little lighter, but I actually think that there's sort of Cheryl says he is not finished. Well, I guess that is the definitive word. All right. Yeah. Well, I guess I better get to work.
Right.
But there is more to say, for sure.
I'm sure there is. So I have some questions that have been, heavily thought out and researched. But to warm you up a little bit, we're going to do a little lightning round that may or may not have anything to do with the book. And then we'll do another lightning round to just learn a little bit more about you.
Awesome.
Have you ever stolen anything?
Yes.
What was it?
I'm not at liberty to say.
Most regretful fashion choice you ever made?
Oh, I had a pirate shirt once that someone made for me, and I've been known to wear it. It doesn't fit me anymore, thank goodness.
Okay. Mid-century modern, antique, or contemporary?
Mid-century modern, for sure.
The thing that you like least about yourself?
Oh, indecisiveness. I couldn't even I was like, wait, I don't know. Yeah, for sure.
And the thing that you like the most about yourself?
I like how my brain sort of runs on without me, I guess. So that's probably good. And I actually love that people make me happy. I really feel like there are people who really do just connect with the world, and that's something I've been privileged to do.
Well, we are all super, super lucky to have you connect with us, and I feel the same. So I just wanted to, do you want to call up that review, or should we just move straight into their questions?
We can skip in, I think. I do want to call out a great friend and reviewer of mine, Jenna Brown, who has been really supportive, and she said some pretty awesome stuff. It's a great review. Check it out. But that was great. The key thing is what I love is she's like, I give this series all the GD stars. I have to abbreviate that because my mom and dad are on the phone. So So that's as much as I'm going to say,
Okay.
but you should check it out.
All right. Well, speaking of moms and dads, I want to go into our first question. And so let's talk about this intersection of two of your many obsessions that intersect here in Scorpion. One of them is parenting or the lack thereof, and then the other one is the end of the world. And what was that like to weave them together in this book?
So I think some people know this, but I think there's a sort of something about having grown up in the 80s, having grown up religious, but I really was obsessed with the end of the world and am. I mean, if some people are, you know, like afraid of spiders or the dark, I think I really am afraid of the end of the world. And one of the ways that I've like had to kind of, that I dealt with that is by writing about it. And so when I first sort of like sat down and started thinking about what I wanted to write, like a post-apocalyptic was just sort of like the natural way that I wanted to do it. And I think because it tells us what sort of like, it tells a lot about who we are as humans, like how we operate. And that kind of led naturally into my premise, which was what would happen if there weren't any grown-ups left, if we didn't have parents, and, you know, how would we survive? How would the world be different? You know, and I think, and I've said some of this before, you know, I read a study which kind of influenced this, which was we had two kind of big bursts in population in this world. And one was when we developed agriculture, and the other one was when we had parents. And that made a massive difference in our survival rate. And so I wanted to talk about what this world looks like without, you know, without kind of impulse control, that kind of thing. But then I had also sort of started digging into what does parenting mean to us? Like, what does it mean to kids? You know, and if you kind of take it out from sort of like purely based on survival, which is what it was once in a time, what does it mean to have parents in your life? And so these characters, I think, are kind of rightly obsessed with having parents. And what they start to realize as they kind of get to meet the old guys, who are the closest thing they're ever going to have to parents, is that that alone is not enough to kind of solve our problems. You know, as parents, we are flawed, and we don't have the answers. And I think, you know, one of the best things we can do is sort of help kids to solve some of these problems themselves, because we're not always going to be able to do that for them.
Yeah, that's like that. You know, there's the bathrobe in the closet that looks like a monster, and really the only way is to shine that light on it. So in a way, you sort of shine the light on is that you can just get rid of that fear.
I had a dresser that looked like a bear, and that was terrifying to me for for years. And of course, our rooms were in the basement, so there's no light in there except for like the tiniest little bit. So everything looked like a monster.
Yeah, just gotta shine that light. So, and speaking of no parents, so the timing of, as I kept reading this book, I was thinking how timely and eerie that, like, the timing is just so crazy eerie, because we're in the midst of a badly managed pandemic. And I keep wondering, well, where's the grown-ups in the room? Like, where is everybody? Or, you know, who's going to take care of us? And in your book, there's some badly managed technology that's gone off the rails, and it causes people to die before they live out their teen years. And it right now, it does feel a lot like the beginning of the end, like, you know, like, oh, there's no toilet paper, and, you know. So I wanted to you know, ask you about this thoughts on this dystopian world that you created well before there was any COVID, and then the world we are in now. Does that strike you as odd or creepy? Or
yeah, you know, it's funny. There are a lot of parallels, and I think one of the things that's true is that we've let technology sort of go past our ability to sort of manage it. I mean, and that's actually probably classic dystopian stuff, but it's actually true that we sort of develop things before we sort of have the ability to do these things. And but the other thing I wanted to talk about is you know, as I was writing these books, I really kind of, in some ways, it's kind of a tribute to The Stand, where there's sort of this plague that wipes out humanity, and these sort of supernatural forces sort of come into play, and there's sort of this like kind of like the battle between good and evil, and I couldn't quite like write about a supernatural force. It's not quite my thing, but I just thought, you know, what would technology look like to kids who haven't seen it for 100 years, you know? And so there's a reason why like one of their gods is TV, because that's pretty magical, you know, like that's the powers are kind of astounding when you think about what's possible. So I think that's a big part of it, is sort of this mystifying, the way the technology continues to mystify us.
Yeah, I mean, you see technology is, I mean, so even today, I mean, I could be thinking about, say, like harem pants or pirate shirts, and just thinking about it, not even telling anybody, and then suddenly the ad for pirate shirts is up on my Facebook, or, you know, it's just such a crazy.
It's like, are we talking in our sleep?
Yeah, it's
like
kind
that?
of a crazy thing. And I'm just wondering, like, do you know something that we don't? Like, what is...
Well, you know, I do like to think that I predicted the pandemic. I just wish that I had predicted a cure from it, but I suspect it's not going to be nanotech. That's kind of that's my final word on the matter there.
Okay, and I just wanted to just ask, just go into a little bit, and you've talked about this in podcasts before, but you were raised Mormon. Mm-hmm. You are not really close to the church now, but mm-hmm. How did any of that influence what you wrote?
Sure. I mean, I think a big part of the kind of view of like the end of the world and sort of being this kind of struggle between good and evil comes from that. So it's a pretty natural place to look. But I also think that one of like, and that's sort of like maybe like the part that I wasn't as positive, that I'm still trying to figure out. But I think the other part that really was valuable is that I think Mormonism believes pretty fundamentally in a positive view of humans, that we are essentially, that we are fundamentally good, you know, and that's an important viewpoint. I think that informs everything I write in this book, is that, you know, and I think like Lord of the Flies would take an opposite point of view when he looked at an all kid society and decided that was bad, you know, that we are not good. Humans are not naturally good. And my feeling was, and having raised my kids, having seen them, I believe that humans, I feel optimistic about what our world would look like in the hands of children. And that's partly because I've seen my own kids, and they're so amazing at so many things, and they have such generous hearts that I think that I think fundamentally I believe that is a positive thing. If not that I would ever wish that on the world, but it's pretty amazing.
I can't wait till they're in charge, honestly. They're going to do such a better job.
Like,
they're going to do so much better.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to talk a little bit, because I know that we probably have some writers in the audience, and I want to talk a little bit about your process and writing and plot. This is such an intricate weaving of characters and time and timelines and things that have to happen in order for other things to happen in your story. So I wanted to talk about how you know what's going to happen, and I want to see this amazing map that you have that you used as a tool.
So for Mayfly, I kind of had a cheat, and I actually, by the way, I knew the plot was always going to be hard, because I have ADHD. Like, it's pretty amazing that I can finish a scene, let alone an entire book. So I think there's like, and so everyone out there who has struggles kind of along the same lines, like this is probably helpful. Mayfly, I kind of gave myself a cheat in that there was like a physical destination. I knew where they had to go and what they had to accomplish. So then it was just a question of like what obstacles were kind of along the way. For Scorpion, I really struggled with it. And when I say like, you know, this was a hard thing to write, the first draft was, by anyone's assessment, not great. My publisher basically said, yeah, it's not going to work. And I would have been maybe lost respect if she had said, yeah, let's do this. But I just had to get done. And part of it was because, you know, I'm struggling to figure out what had to happen, especially as I took on this sort of like expanded world. It wasn't just Gemma anymore. It was the people that she met along the way. They all had a point of view, because I wanted to show what was happening to society. And so I kind of like outlined it at first, and it just didn't quite work. And so I did a couple of things. I'm going to show you guys what I did. So first thing I did is I took a look at all the major characters and all the major groups of people, and I wrote those storylines separately. I didn't combine them, and I wrote them in Scrivener, which I would highly recommend if you're doing any sort of long form project, because you can write it in scenes, you can move things around if you want, all that kind of stuff. And so I wrote it that way. And rather than outlining it, I came across a mind mapping application, which I'm gonna share my screen just for a sec so you guys can see this.
And for those of you who have not read the books yet, so basically the characters in these books are broken up into tribes. So you have these different tribes. So not only do you have something going on in the book as a whole, but each tribe has things happening within it as well, which makes it super.
So I think you guys can see this, I hope. But you can see that I basically divide everything up by kind of main characters. Ice Cream Man and Alfie, Little Man and the Biters, Tasha and the Kingdom, Trina and the Hollywood. And I actually go through and block everything out by scene. You can see some of them like Gemma and the Mayflies. The Mayflies stuff goes on for a long time and keeps on going and going. Some people don't have very much, but I decided to do it that way because I wanted to keep track. The challenge was that, so I wrote it all that way and it looked pretty great. And I will say, like, the first draft of the book, I basically, I wrote them all and then I realized I had to combine them. And I just sort of like mixed and matched. I sort of like I did a drag and drop of everything. I'm like, this looks pretty good. And I sent it off, and it was mostly because I was sick at the time. I didn't have the ability to, to really sort of like give it the attention it needed to. And so that's how I did it. But then that was kind of, it caused a problem because they didn't really fit together. So then then the issue became, how do you make sure that all these pieces fit together? And I kind of did one thing, which is I color coded every plot line with a particular color. So I could kind of visually see the index card view of everything and understand what was happening. Or, kind of like, and if it was like clustered together, then I knew how to break up the scenes. But even beyond that, I had to, I still kind of figured it together, and it was like, I wish there was some like visual way to depict kind of like events happening over time. And
like you mean like with days and weeks and months
exactly.
that are like all in one
and
page?
So I literally went to Google Calendar, which of course I live, as someone with ADHD, I live, see, now I have a new appointment there. But as someone who, damn it. I'm gonna go back because it's important, but I actually mapped out over the space of 3 months when scenes happened. And so I have things like Tommy at the Weavers, and like I figured out like how long is he there? How long does it take him to journey home? All that kind of stuff. And I took the same color coding that I used before, and so I could literally start to see like, when do things happen? What could be happening at the same time? Where should they fit in the book? And then I took that and I matched up with the index cards in Scrivener, and that's how I got to that. And I would heartily recommend this. Like, it's pretty amazing once you start doing that. You start realizing how long things work. I have things like I had to set certain scenes like during the full moon and new moon. And so I did all of that kind of stuff. I'm gonna stop sharing because I'll probably show something embarrassing in a second, but that's basically the idea.
That's amazing. So I feel like there's if any of you are app developers out there, you should call him, because I think there's a room for some kind of tool that has all of these things together. So we talked about time, and I want to talk about place and dialect and names. So in the books, you have really very specific naming conventions. I had this friend who used to raise potbelly pigs, and every litter she would name like the jazz singer. So she would have Satchmo and Ella, and then she would have like the Little Rascals series, and she'd have Spanky, and so but in a way you have something kind of similar, like you. I love how you described it when we were talking before, and you said basically just imagine if everybody was named by teen moms, or like they'd have kind of those like stripper names.
It's true. I mean,
like Sparkle Tiara,
if every mom that you met was 16, you'd get the names would start degrading pretty quickly, and that's not meant as disrespect to 16-year-olds. It's just I've seen some of the names that their kids have had. Cinnamon, thank you. With an S. Sparkle Tiara. Yeah, we could kind of go from there. And so there were a few things. So one that was a factor is that like you've got a group of people who don't have a history, and so things will evolve over time. But I also approached every kind of group of kids really from sort of a anthropological point of view, where it was like, why did this group of people survive, and what are their characteristics that made that, and what ends up sort of like emerging. And for example, with the Angelinos, they were a combination of like three groups of people, Koreans, Latinos, and white kids. And so, but they were also in Hollywood. So they had sort of like Korean and Spanish names in there, but they also had names like Apple and Blue and Lady, who is, if you guys didn't know this, is actually named after Lady Gaga, who in my world would have been like a priestess or a goddess or something like that. And so that's kind of where those names came from. And then for say like the biters or the chosen, who come from kind of preppy kids in Palos Verdes, a lot of them are named with like preppy names. There's definitely like a Lance in there, but there's also like people are named after objects that were important to them. So even all these years later, there's people named Mercedes and Stanford and things like that. And then I would say the kingdom was kind of a mixture of like, they're all former gang members, and they ran, like they were all from different ethnic groups, but there were some Black kids who were part of the original group of people, as well as Pacific Islanders. There's like Pacific Islander names. The king's name is X. One of the former kings is named Cleaver after Eldridge Cleaver. And so there's sort of like ways of that I believe they would try to honor their heritage, and I think like kind of show their identity in lots of cool ways.
Yeah, it's like they're kind of grasping for those like little tiny scraps of history that they have. And my next question actually follows that, is I want to talk about how you decided on the language. So some of the tribes, when they speak, they sound pretty much like we would consider standard English today. But then some of the other kids talk like, almost like a pidgin version of English. How did the language in this world evolve from, and for those people who don't know, it's about 100 years in the future, 100 and change. And so a lot can happen to language, especially if you don't have school or regular TV or, things that you're constantly learning from.
I mean, part of it was sort of influences of different languages on them. The ice cream men, for example, don't necessarily come from like any one ethnic group, and so they don't have like a strong kind of like language identity. And theirs is probably the most degraded. They have no like sort of storytelling or like kind of culture because of that. And so that's one of the reasons why theirs is sort of like a little more degraded. The kingdom very consciously kind of like they were modeling themselves after like the works of Shakespeare and then the tales of King Arthur and things like that. So they ended up like kind of taking on a more formal tone. So it's partly kind of aspirations, and it's partly kind of just the kind of facts of who happened to be living in that area at that time.
It's so well thought out. I mean, all these details, I would never, ever, ever have thought of those. Cheryl, I don't want to do myself out of another book deal, but I was like,
she'll consult with me on the language.
You're so smart about those details. So my last question before we go into the lightning round of who you are, what was the hardest part to write for you, and what upset you the most? And I know you were upset.
I think part of it was just that because this happened to sort of come as I was struggling just to sort of hold things together in life, and was sort of dealing with the anxiety that came from being sick, all those kinds of things. I think the biggest part was initially I was sort of coming with ideas and feeling creative, but then once I started going into it, this is pretty deep stuff. If you guys read this, like it's, I'm like, it's YA, but it's trying to get to kind of the core of what makes us human, and how our relationships work with each other, and what our identity is, all that kind of stuff. And I will say the last few scenes of the book, when you write, you have to feel everything, I think, if you're really gonna do it. And for me, like I felt it. This was sort of a way of me processing everything that was going on in my life. And, you know, I think I probably cried for like 3 days straight while I was writing. You know, sometimes I couldn't see the keyboard. And I was like, I'm a good touch typist, so I guess that worked well. But like, so I think like it was emotionally taxing in a way that I'd never encountered before in my work. But it was also incredibly gratifying. And by the way, I would love if you guys send, you know, notes like after you read this. I'm curious how it affects you, because for me, it was like so very deeply part of just kind of how we navigate life. So, and thanks, Jenna. Yes, I talk about parenting a lot, like kind of what that means to, you know, to be a parent, what it means to have parents. You know, I thought like, you know, as adults, as kids, all those kinds of things. And so that was a big part of it. And I think there's a lot of universal truths. I don't know that I discovered them, but I certainly tapped into them as writing.
It's so horrifying, you know, like I have a 9-year-old and I think about like leaving her alone to go to the store. If I go to the store for 2 blocks away, I have like, she can call me on Alexa, she can text me, she can like all of these things. I just, you know, and then it's just the whole thought of your premise is really shocking. It's shocking, but it's amazing. And it's amazing testament to the characters you created. So
thank you.
Well done. Well done. All right, let's lighten it up because I don't want you to start.
Well, I'm going to tell everybody. So guys, start dropping in Q&A questions that you want to ask, because after we do this little lightning round, we're going to be asking you. So definitely, I want to hear from you guys. Okay, where are you going?
Okay, so while you guys are coming, to the kitchen.
I've been drinking this whole time, Charles. One of these is water. I'm not really sure which one.
All right, so while you're coming up with your questions, I have some lightning rounds so we can get to know our author and friend, Jeff Sweat, a little bit better. If somebody called you the wrong name, how long would it take to correct them, or would you just let it ride?
Instantly. With the last name Sweat, you get called the wrong name all the time. So it becomes, for better or worse, it's something. Although my lovely son Jackson is much more mild-mannered than me. He had a teacher who called him the wrong name for like the first half of a year. And we finally had to talk to the teacher. Sorry, Jackson, he's listening. But I think
hilarious. Vegas or Miami?
Oh my! Can I just say neither? I mean, that's such a horrible choice. Sorry, Vegas, because my friend Jenna lives there, but that's honestly the only reason I'd ever go.
I didn't say these are going to be easy or fun. Last TV show you binged?
We're currently watching Normal People, and Rachel's recommendation, and it actually is pretty awesome. But I think Fleabag was probably the last one we just like went straight through.
So good. Cheryl told me to watch Fleabag.
It's awesome.
And Cheryl's like a whole special character in this thing now. Special skill, flying or invisibility?
Oh, geez. Flying.
Last time you fibbed?
Today, probably. I don't know. Yesterday.
First person you had a crush on that you can remember?
Tracy Stevens, kindergarten.
Tracy?
She's
You're
not
out there?
on, sorry.
Okay. Let's see. What's your favorite road trip food?
Corn nuts. The whatever the salsa picante ones.
Cheryl, I also love the hot priest. He's gay, by the way. Anything are things that happen to us fate, or are they just random?
I believe they're just random, but they can feel like fate because I think we just are we're wired to see patterns in things. And so we bring meaning into everything, which is okay. Like that's how we cope with the world.
Would you eat a piece of pizza from a New York City subway floor for $5?
I would eat a piece of pizza from any other floor but that one.
How about for $100,000?
Probably.
Okay, just checking. Most inspirational author?
See, this is where I can't ever decide these things. Sometimes I don't even know what my favorite color is. It's black, but that isn't color. Pass.
Are narwhals real or mythical creatures?
They are real.
Yes, I didn't know that until this year.
I've met one.
Yeah, really? Amazing.
Not really, but that'd be cool.
What is a word or two that make you squirm?
I'm cool with all words. And some of the ones that my friends hate, I'm cool with too, like moist, for example. See, I know, but I love it just because,
Pocket too.
Pocketbook. That's
I
amazing.
hate that word, pocketbook. Okay, your special skill: breathing underwater or surviving fire.
Breathe in. Wow. I think I'd probably want to breathe underwater because I feel like that's where we're heading anyway.
Okay. What is one thing you consume every single day that you can say in front of your parents?
What did I say? Probably. I'm a writer, so I'm going to say probably alcohol, for sure.
All right. Well, maybe we have to have an intervention soon. Okay. Have you ever been in a fist fight?
Yes.
What sound do you think a narwhal makes?
I don't know. I imagine it sounds like a pissed off dolphin.
Can you make that sound?
No, I'm not going to.
Okay. Would you have shot Hitler given the chance and knowing you could die?
Yeah, I would have. I'm cool with messing with the space-time continuum.
Ask permission or beg forgiveness?
Oh, always. Neither.
Neither. Okay.
Just keep on going.
Beyonce or Rihanna?
Rihanna.
What is a place on your bucket list to visit?
I mean, at this point, anything out of the country would be pretty awesome. I honestly would love to get back to Ireland, France.
Matt wants to go to France.
Oh, that's. I think it's
Okay,
Rachel.
I'm gonna have to ask you again to please make that narwhal noise.
All right. All right.
Awesome.
You
Okay.
guys, hate you all.
Is it annoying when people Instagram their food?
I mean, it makes me hungry, but I don't like go through Instagram often enough to really develop strong feelings.
Okay, you're so non-judgmental. Is a dog's life more valuable than a cow's?
Wow, that's a really good question. I'm told they're less tasty. I don't know. That's such a weird question, but yes, it gets into some very complicated ethical issues. Probably not.
Okay, most embarrassing moment.
Yeah, in high school, I had something printed on my basketball jersey, like my shooting shirt, as they call it, that it turns out to have been a cryptic insult. So I decided, anyway, I found out after like the first game. I'm not gonna tell you what it is, family stuff, but yeah, it turned.
Oh, wow, okay.
So yeah,
I'll ask you
we all
about
had
this.
nicknames, but that one was.
I'll ask you about this after another
Yes.
cocktail. And then finally, your final thing before we get to the audience questions are, can you please sing a verse from a Frank Sinatra song for us?
Sure. See, this is where I go blank. Let's see. My grandfather's favorite song was I Did It My Way, my grandpa Powell. He wanted me to sing at his funeral. We ended up not doing that. Probably a good choice. But I know that people say that in the Philippines you can get arrested for singing this, but I'll just do one. I want the start of it. That's all I'm gonna do. That's all you get. And now the end is near. And that's all I'm gonna say. Thanks.
Take it. Okay,
All right,
so,
I want to ask questions here.
okay, so we have, will there be a movie and who would you have play Gemma?
So I feel like Sienna earlier would be great. But actually, I haven't really given a thought of that. I feel like the kids are so young, but by the time we get it made, it's going to be a whole new group of kids. And so I think it's not going to be there. I know for sure that I want, it's really important to me in Mayfly that the kids are all almost across the board are multicultural. And so that would be really important for me. So I would say, I don't know that yet. I'm hoping there will be a movie. Cheryl, can we start this again? I feel like pandemic makes us super relevant. And I think we could probably get that going. So. Okay,
this next question comes from Shannon. Do you think the story and characters would be different if the books were set in the New York City area? That's a great question.
I think they would. I think realistically they wouldn't survive as long. And that's not a knock on New York. It's just a knock on the climate. I kind of was setting stuff, and I actually thought a lot about what cities I wanted to set this in. And I kind of early on, I decided to set it in a warm weather climate. And it's funny, for some reason I was like, oh, well, what if it was Florida or South Carolina or Georgia or something like that? And at a certain point I was like, I don't know anything about those places. I don't want to write about those places. I want to write about LA. And that's how that happened. So I think they talk about this in Scorpion, about how certain parts of the country were wiped out a lot sooner simply because the winters were harsher, which I think would be completely true.
And also for your Southern California readers, there are so many Easter eggs. So it's a really fun read if you know anything about Southern California.
Oh yeah, by the way, I'm supposed to show you guys this really quickly. So this book that you guys are ordering, which by the way, I know you guys some already purchased it from other places, which we're not allowed to mention on this because we love Roman so much. But should you want to order another one, this is worth it, because every one of these books that you get is going to have a sign, and some people want signed a book since tricky in the pandemic, but it's going to have a special edition map, which was created by our very own Sunny Cannon, that inserted inside, and I'll kind of show that. Like this is, like we kind of viewed this as sort of like Lord of the Rings meets Hollywood star maps. Is kind of how we envision this, because the idea is that it was written by kids or drawn by kids because they kind of lack this. So every one of these will have a signed map inserted in this. Max is probably gonna be the one who's gonna be pasting them all in. So sorry, Max. But this is gonna be, so buy it. First of all, to support our local bookstores, but you should buy one, even if you have it, and then give away the other one. They won't know.
They'll never know.
They'll just,
you can just Xerox the map.
You get to keep the good one. And then, and so Max, yes, you can purchase these from Vroman's. Vroman, if you wouldn't mind putting the link in there one more time, I will be personally hand delivering these maps to Vroman's, and we'll be putting those in.
So exciting.
So I know everybody has asked me throughout this, like, how can I get a signed copy? And that's been really challenging. And I don't have unlimited FedEx budget, or I would totally do it for you guys. But this is the kind of the closest we can get.
Maybe you could send them a signed bookmark.
Oh, I do. I've been told that there's some on their way.
Yeah, the FedEx does.
Yes, we'll get some signed bookmarks as well.
Next question comes from Chidi. A favorite snack while writing your book?
Whiskey.
And sensing a
My
pattern.
parents are so disappointed. I'm sorry. Also,
how about a food snack?
I read because sometimes I don't have time to like eat. I do a lot of the Welch's fruit snacks, which of course are just pure sugar, but like that's just how
you gotta do your thing.
3 of those a day, probably. Sure.
Are there words that you have a hard time pronouncing? Asked Chidi as well.
Yeah. So ironically, since I am in communications is a hard word for me to say sometimes. I feel like in our family we kind of sometimes trip over words in our enunciation. So you can't even say that. Post-apocalyptic is one that I frequently struggle with. And again, ironic given that's how I'm making a living. So there you go.
Good thing you know how to spell those.
I know.
Yay.
Exactly.
Share how, Matt Rodriguez asked share how being a dad informed the way you wrote the book.
I don't know that I would have written this at all the way I did if I weren't a father. And again, shout out to my kids who I hope are still watching. They're probably bored at this point, but and it's partly the way we've raised them, and I'm going to take a little bit of credit, but they are so self-sufficient. They are so just capable that it was really easy for me to imagine a world in which they were in charge, and it didn't alarm me all that much. And so I think like I have tried to write these like teen characters the way that hopefully like my kids would act in a similar situation. So it's given me, I think, incredible insight into the insecurities of kids but also their strengths.
Were you ever like, hey Jackson, what would you do if some like random kid popped out of an ice cream cart with a machete? Just like crowdsource this.
Well, all my kids are pretty non-violent, but I suspect in the right circumstances, they'd probably figure it out, and that's okay if they don't ever have to learn that. One thing I was realizing we didn't talk about, which I'll bring up just as kind of an important thing, is that for this book, especially as I was kind of going through, I was trying to figure out the plot, it was sort of rooted in what do my characters need, and what are their sort of like things that are keeping them from doing that. And that's something I didn't do for Mayfly. So hopefully you guys see the difference, that there's sort of, it's much more rooted in a interpersonal thing. And I think Jenna, you pointed that out as well. But it's true, I spent a lot more time getting into their internal state. And one of the things that I kind of realized is that all of them believed in some way that they were sort of fundamentally broken. So there was some piece of them that didn't fit. And at first I kind of like thought, oh, is that wrong? Should I not be writing that way? And I realized that's just sort of how the way we see ourselves, like as humans. Like I think all of us feel, whether we want to or not, like there is something missing, and we think like there is one thing in the world that's going to make us seem whole and better. And I think this book tries to get into that, to talk about why we feel there's a piece missing.
Yeah, do most of us feel like we are enough?
Yeah, and I think we don't. We hopefully are able to kind of fill those gaps with the people that we surround ourselves with, and hopefully we have belief systems that help us. But I will just say, kind of just to everybody, it's okay to feel that way, and that you are enough. So anyway,
you are enough, and you're enough.
Thank you.
And we have a couple more questions.
We do. They came in.
Yeah. Let's see. So Matt also said, what pop culture songs and movies influenced both Mayfly and Scorpion?
Interesting. So I would say a big one that you guys should see if you didn't was Children of Men. Not so much the book, which is just the one case where the movie's actually better. But it just sort of showed what would happen if there are no children. And for me, that was a really powerful thing that I obviously kind of flipped on its head to kind of ask the opposite question. Pop culture, Mad Max movies for sure. Songs, probably not as much, but definitely books and movies. And Lord of the Flies is one of them. So yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Well, does anybody have any more questions?
All right, you guys rock. So I think everybody has, thank you. I appreciate this. Guys, you are so awesome. I wish I could see your faces, but I believe I have sent out links to pretty much everybody here. If you guys want to pop in on a Zoom call, it's 7:30 now. I'd love to see your faces, even though it's going to be crazy hard for us to say it. But anyway, love you guys, and we'll see you on the other side.
Okay, well done.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh, also make sure you rate them 5 stars on Amazon. Rating is so important for writers, especially with a new work, because it will help bring his ratings up. So please, wherever you rate books, Goodreads or Amazon or whatever bookstore you buy and that allows ratings, please always rate those books on Amazon. Nothing less than 5 stars. Even if you kind of like it, and even if you only kind of like Jeff, 5 stars, please.
It's true.
Yeah.
There's it's awesome. I didn't realize some folks are on here. You guys, thanks for joining. But I was gonna say, yeah, it's true. If you love an author, give them 5 stars. There's no, in this world, anything less than that is 0 stars, basically.
Yeah,
So.
you're gonna be dead to him if it's less than 5 stars. So
I will still love you, but
stars.
but yes.
Yeah.